The road through Kansas was supposed to be empty, nothing but wheat and sky. But that evening, as the sun bled low, I saw a water tower rise where the horizon should have been. Gideon, it read in bold black letters. I don't remember deciding to turn off. The car just seemed to find the road a neat strip of asphalt that had been there a mile ago. The cottonwoods bent toward each other, like they were hiding something. Beyond them stretched a main street frozen in time. Diner, gas station, church steeple catching the last light. It was small, quiet, welcoming in a way that made my chest ache. Inside the sun-up diner, the bell jingled. The smell of bacon and coffee wrapped me whole. Strangers nodded, spoke my name like they'd been expecting me. I should have felt safe. But when night came, Gideon was gone. First, disappearance. The sun was falling when I turned off the highway. The sky stretched in long bands of copper and violet, as if someone had taken a brush soaked in watercolor and dragged it across the Kansas horizon. My car rattled over the gravel shoulder, tires humming, dust rising like a ghost in the rear view. I should have been back at the motel by now. Instead, my gut told me to double back, because my notebook my entire life as a reporter was still sitting on the counter of the sun-up diner in Gideon. Without it, I was nothing but a driver chasing shadows. The first time I had seen the road into town, it was obvious. A green mile marker, a dip in the ditch, to cottonwoods leaning in like a pair of old men whispering. Beyond them stretched Main Street, neat as a picture postcard. At midday it had seemed so permanent, so ordinary, but now the road was gone. The cottonwoods were there, the ditch was there, but where the asphalt had cut away, there was only a continuous fence line and a shimmering field of wheat, shifting under the last light. The stalks leaned into each other, whispering with a sound that made the hair along my arms lift. I slowed, blinked, put the car in reverse, then forward again. I turned off the radio. Nothing changed. The turnoff wasn't hiding behind a trick of light. It wasn't there at all. "Come on," I muttered. "Don't do this to me." My GPS spun, the little blue dot floating in beige emptiness. When I zoomed out, the map bled blank. No Gideon, no side road, no diner, just me. The air carried a smell that didn't belong to twilight. It wasn't fresh-cut grass or motor oil or even rain waiting in the clouds. It was dust, farm dust, the scent of old wooden barns and wheat bins where mice swam through forgotten grain. Dry, stale, insistent. I eased the car onto the shoulder, hazard lights blinking in the darkening air. I got out, gravel crunching under my shoes. The cicadas were louder here, a rolling carpet of sound. Over it, the wind threaded the wheat with that whisper again, she, like someone breathing secrets just out of earshot. "Hello," I said, absurdly, as if a whole town might answer. The prairie didn't answer. It just pressed closer, its silence bigger than me. I walked the fence line. My shoes snagged on thistles. I pressed my palm against the barbed wire. Rust came off like powder onto my skin. I leaned forward, scanning for tire ruts, for anything that might suggest a road had once been here. But there was only wheat, brushing together, gold turned black in the failing light. I remembered the bell over the sun-up's door, the smell of meatloaf, Willa's braid slipping down her shoulder as she poured coffee, Sheriff Dayton's two-finger salute from the cruiser. All of it felt realer than the ground beneath my feet. Yet none of it was here. A crow cawed somewhere far off, sharp as a cough. Then silence again. By the time I got back in the car, the sky had gone indigo. My phone screen glowed cold and useless. No bars, no signal. Just the blue dot of myself floating on an empty sea. The drive back to Salina felt longer than it should have. The road was black, the white lines blurred by fatigue. Trucks thundered past, their headlights too bright, their trailers screaming with the sound of loose chains. I kept looking in the rear view, half expecting to see the neon cup of the diner flicker into being, steam curling into the night, but there was nothing. The motel's vacancy sign buzzed like an insect when I pulled in. The office smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. Lee, the clerk, handed me a key without looking up from his newspaper. Room 12. I walked across the cracked pavement, under a row of humming fluorescent lights, and unlocked the door. The room was the same as every cheap roadside motel room in America. Floral bedspread, painting of a barn, air conditioner, coughing. But something inside it felt wrong tonight, as if the walls had been standing too long without their foundations. I dropped onto the bed, kicked off my shoes, and rubbed my face. My hands smelled like rust and dust. Then I saw it. On the back seat of my car, in the dim light filtering from the parking lot, lay a folded napkin. Not mine. A diner napkin from the sunup, creased neatly, placed with care. My heart jolted. I picked it up. Ink had bled into the cheap paper. The word written in tall, uneven letters. Morning. The M and G were oversized. The O was closed too tight, like a grape. I knew that handwriting left-handed. I had noticed the smudge of ink on Willa's finger when she de-poured my coffee. She had put this here, but how? When I dropped the napkin onto the nightstand and sat staring at it, the motel clock ticking too loud. Each second felt stretched. The air grew heavier, as if night itself was leaning on my chest. Sleep wouldn't come. I turned on the TV, muted the late-night comedy. I paced the room. At 2 a.m., I gave up and checked my car again, certain I'd find more. But there was nothing, just the napkin, waiting like a patient whisper. When I finally slept, my dreams were filled with wheat. Tall stalks rose over my head, brushing together with that endless hiss. Faces formed in the kernels when the moon hit them. Not cruel faces, just watching. When I tried to run, the wheat leaned with me, guiding me back, back, back. I woke with a start, chest damp, breath caught. On the windowsill, a thin line of dust lay like a string pulled taut. I rubbed it between my fingers. It smelled like the church bulletin board I had seen in Gideon mildewed paper, hymnals stored too long. The sky outside was paling, the first knife of dawn cutting through the night, and with it came an overwhelming pull, not dread, not comfort, but certainty. I had to go back, because Gideon would be there, but only in the morning. The morning returns. The sky was washed clean when I drove back. A pale blade of light cut the horizon, slicing away the night as if it had never been. The prairie shimmered, dew clinging to the wheat. Cicadas had fallen silent, replaced by meadowlarks, whose calls carried like laughter through open windows. And there it was, the sign. Welcome to Gideon, Pop. 982, see you in the morning. The wood gleamed wet, letters darkened by dew on the back. The burned words were clearer than ever. Keep us in the light. Drops of water filled the grooves like tears. The turnoff stretched exactly where it should be. Asphalt cut between the two cottonwoods, their branches tangled like old fingers. The road rolled into Main Street as though it had always been there, as though last night's absence was my own private hallucination. Relief hit me first, then unease. I drove into town, tires humming. The water tower rose above the rooftops, sunlight glinting off its white paint. Gideon, black letters bold against the sky. The diner's neon cup flickered pale in the early hour. The sunup smelled like bacon fat, lemon oil, and the bitter promise of strong coffee. The bell jangled as I pushed the door. Marlene looked up from the register. She smiled like she'd been expecting me. "Morning, Mr. Roan," she said. "See, everything's simpler in the daylight." I hesitated. I think I left my notebook. Without missing a beat, she reached under the counter and brought it out, rubber-banded, pen tucked inside. "Safe as houses," she said. "Willa kept it for you." I turned. Willa was pouring coffee at a booth, braid pulled over her shoulder. She glanced up, eyes quick, then down again. No smile, just that same bird-like look, sharp and fleeting. "I couldn't find the turn last night," I said carefully. Marlene's hand paused over the register. Willa set a cup down a little too hard. The room held still, as if it too wanted to listen. "Night plays tricks," Marlene said finally. "Always has." Sheriff Dayton came in then, bell jangling. He set his hat on the counter, slid onto a stool. His presence filled the space like a shadow that didn't need darkness. "No shame in losing your way," he said. "Highway can fool a man after sundown." I was on the same road. I insisted. It was gone. The sheriff stirred his coffee. The spoon tapped porcelain with a steady, patient beat. "You're not the first to say that. Best not to argue with night. It always wins." Willa's voice came soft but clear. "Sometimes it isn't night that wins. Sometimes it's the morning." Nobody answered. After breakfast, I wandered Main Street. Gideon looked ordinary, almost too ordinary. Storefronts swept clean, windows gleaming, flower pots on the steps of the hardware store. A barber swept blonde and grey clippings into a dustpan. A boy rode past on a rusty bike, baseball mitt hanging from the handlebar. Yet beneath the shine, unease lingered. At the church, I found the bulletin board again. The same flyers, pie social, rummage sale, sunrise, gathering, 5:47 a.m., nitrogen monoxide, latecomers. I touched the edges of the paper, still damp from morning air. Inside, the sanctuary was dim and cool. Stained glass caught sunlight and flung it across the pews. Not saints, not crosses only, wheat and hands lifted toward the sun. Behind the pulpit, a wide window framed the fields. No candles, no organ, just that hungry light. On a side table sat a stack of cards. Stay in the light, printed neat. I took one. The back carried a prayer. Keep us, Lord, from the moon's cold demand. Keep our feet from the dark furrow. Keep our breath warm in the wheat. The last line clung to me, like burrs in socks. Back at the diner, Marlene let me leaf through a thick leather-bound book on the counter. The cover was embossed with wheat sheaves. Inside, brown-ruled pages carried dates stretching back decades. At the top, sunrise gathering guest log. I ran a finger down the names. Some dark and bold, others faded to ghosts. Some appeared year after year, others bright for a month, then gone. And beside a handful, written in smaller letters, a single word, stay. What does that mean? I asked. Marlene wiped the counter, not looking up. It means they stayed. Stayed where? Here, she said simply. I turned a page. Names blurred, some unreadable. The ink seemed to retreat as I stared. My stomach twisted. You're shaking, Marlene said gently. I hadn't noticed. My hand trembled on the page. I pulled it back. Sheriff Dayton appeared at my shoulder, moving quieter than a man his size should. Names keep you, he said. That's what Willa was trying to tell you. Sometimes we forget to see who poured our coffee. I swallowed. Last night, someone left a napkin in my car. Morning. Written on it. Willa's handwriting. The sheriff's eyes moved. Just a flicker. He looked at Willa, who was folding napkins into neat stacks. She didn't meet my gaze. Some folks have big hearts, he said, and bigger stubbornness. Don't read more than you're ready to. I spent the afternoon in the county courthouse at Halliwell, 30 miles away. The map room smelled of dust and history. Drawer after drawer of township plats stretched like coffins of paper. I found Gideon in the 1956 book. A square on the map, population 978, sawmill, bowling alley, still there in 1964, gone in 1980. The clerk, a woman in a cardigan, explained, lost town, happens, drought, highway bypass, people drift away. But the buildings, I said. The water tower, she shrugged. Paper doesn't always match the ground. Sometimes the ground doesn't match itself. On microfiche, I scrolled headlines, harvest festivals, parades, cattle sales. Then September 1976, church fire under investigation, started at dusk, minor damage, cause unknown. A month later, a letter to the editor, keep us in the light. The phrase repeated 5 times, signed a resident of Gideon. Further back, 1959, prayer day in Gideon, drought, crops failing, pastor called for a sunrise gathering, congregation prayed at dawn, rain came. The words keep us in the light were spoken for the first time. The phrase had become more than prayer. It was survival. By evening, I was back on the road to Gideon. The sky bruised purple. The diner's neon cup flickered, steam curling in the dusk. Willa propped the door open with a brick, smell of onions and grease spilling onto the street. Inside, everything hummed with warmth. Forks on plates, coffee pouring, laughter at the counter. I ordered the chicken fried steak, golden crust shattering under my knife. And when Willa slid my plate toward me, she placed a folded napkin beside it, her fingers quick, eyes avoiding mine. I waited until I was outside, standing by my car in the fading light, to unfold it. The word was written careful, deliberate, letters straighter than before. Take me tonight. The napkin shook in my hand, though the wind was barely a breeze. Take me tonight. The letters were straighter this time, the strokes firmer. Willa had written it fast, but not carelessly. Intention bled into the fibers. The Sunop's door creaked. Willa stood there with her arms folded, apron tied in a neat bow. The morning freckles across her nose looked darker in the fading light. I shouldn't have written that, she said, not stepping off the threshold. But I did. Why me? I asked. Because you came back, she said. Because you said my name like it mattered. People eat and leave. You looked. That's dangerous. Marlene's hand appeared on Willa's shoulder, firm and kind. Inside, she said, gentle like a closed door. Then to me, don't go making promises to the dark. It's not polite to accept what you can't pay for. Sheriff Dayton rolled to a stop at the curb, lights off, engine ticking in the heat. He climbed out and set his hat on his head like a ritual. His gaze dropped to the napkin and back up. Talking calls it, he said, as if discussing rainfall. Night listens when you use its name. What is it? I said. He didn't answer. Not because he couldn't, because he wouldn't in the doorway where the bell could hear. Come early tomorrow, Marlene said. Have pie at 10. Everything is easier at 10. The door closed on the smell of onions and coffee. I was left in the last warmth of light, with a napkin that felt heavier than paper should. I didn't sleep much. When I did, I dreamed of street lamps turning their heads away, ashamed to be seen. I woke to the sound of semis dragging their own weather down the highway and the motel AC struggling to keep up. At dawn, I was back in Gideon. Dupearl strung the diner's step. The bell jangled. Willa's braid was up in a knot like a cinnamon roll, pins shining in it like tiny coins. We're slow, she said, sweeping. You can sit where you like. Marlene slid a plate of pancakes toward me without asking. Warm butter slid in yellow lanes. The smell made something unclench in my chest. About last night, Willa began. You were 17 yesterday, Marlene said from the register, and you will be 17 a week more. You keep your feet where they belong. I'm 18 in 8 days, Willa said, eyes on the syrup. 18 is where my feet belong. Marlene didn't answer. The clock did, with its slow metronome. I ate, not because I was hungry, but because the fork gave my hands something to do. After, I asked if I could look at the guest book again. Marlene slid it over. The leather was warm from other palms. I turned pages, names like seeds. Some sprouted into boulder lines. Some faded as if the paper had learned to forget. January swelled into March, then June. Besides certain names, stay, not many. Enough. Why do some names fade? I asked. Because days lean harder on some, Marlene said. Ink keeps the story for a while. Paper gets tired. That's not how ink works, I said, almost smiling. It is here, she said, not smiling at all. I flipped farther back. 1979, 1971, 1960. The handwriting changed with the year's narrow schoolgirl loops, blocky farmer print, elegant cursive that looked like it had been taught with rulers. The word stay looked the same in every era though. Small, certain. Sheriff Dayton came in late, which I had learned meant 7:30. He drank coffee like a man grateful for old friends. When the bell quieted and the morning softened, he tapped the counter. You like records, he said. You went to Halliwell. I did. Did you find the fire? I found the fire. He nodded, as if a ledger entry had balanced. Some things make more sense when you know where the burn marks are. What happened after? I asked. We stopped pretending night was ours, he said. We still have sleep. We still have dreams. We just don't exist in the middle of them. That sounds. I searched for the right word and found none that didn't leave a film on my tongue. Tidy. Nothing tidy about it, he said mildly. We make it tidy with pancakes and politeness. Willa wiped a clean table. I missed junior prom, she said to no one and to me. My friends took pictures at 6. By 7 my place didn't exist. They sent me photos of the dance at 10. I pretended I liked the dresses. I watched the moon go up behind the church window and tried to imagine what music feels like when it is dark. Do they know? I asked. They think we're weird about curfew, she said. They think Mama's strict. They think I'm religious. I let them. It's easier to be a person than a geography lesson. Willa, Marlene murmured. I'm not being rude, Willa said. I'm telling the truth. Mr. Roan likes the truth. She looked at me. I got a letter last month. A scholarship to a cosmetology program in Wichita. Classes go late. There's night clinic hours. The schedule laughed at me on paper. What did you do? I said. I folded the letter small and put it under the sugar jar, she said, so I can still see it when I want sweetness. Her mouth trembled. She bit it into stillness. I walked to the water tower after breakfast because steel and ladders felt like facts. The door at the base was locked with a padlock whose brand name had been rubbed unreadable. Paint peeled in long curls. Underneath, faint scratches, initials, and years. RM78, JE92, a square on the concrete where a plaque had once been. If I tilted my head and squinted, I could see ghost letters where sun had baked around them. Kee, and lower Irvis, Lightkeep. service, or keep us in the light, or nothing. My brain wanted to make a story out of it either way. I pressed my palm to the warm metal. The tower hummed a skin-deep vibration, maybe wind, maybe the echo of water settling. The hum went into my bones. At the church, an old man polished the windowsills with lemon oil. He nodded as I passed. In the sanctuary, the prayer cards were stacked in a glass bowl now. I took another and put it in my wallet, next to a press badge that had opened doors for me in cities that never closed. Keep our breath warm in the wheat. On my way out, I stopped by the bulletin board. Sunrise, gathering 5:47 a.m., no latecomers. Someone had added a line in blue pen. Thank you, Pastor. No name. Back on Main, Duke the mechanic stood in the garage bay, coveralls smudged, a baseball game crackling from a small radio near the open toolbox. He waved me in with a rag. You're the reporter, he said. I'm Duke. Your hands look like they could tune a piano. I said. They could drop one too. He grinned. Oil change due. Probably, I said, and he pulled my car in without asking. He worked with the casual dignity of a man who knows the shape of bolts by feel. He talked while he worked, not the way people fill silence, but the way they show you a map. My brother lives out, he said. He thinks he does. He comes when he can't sleep 3 nights running, eats pancakes, watches the morning take a breath, goes back and pretends it was fishing. We all pretend a lot to be kind to each other. You moved here, I asked. 28, he said. Woman said she was tired of being afraid at night. I thought she was dramatic. I liked the dramatic. Then one day I didn't. Came here, fixed a tractor at 6 a.m., and felt like somebody had opened a different window in my head. Do you miss it? I asked. Night. He wiped his hands on the rag, stared out at the street, where a boy bounced a basketball against the curb in a patient rhythm. I miss the idea of it, he said. I miss thinking there were 2 kinds of time, and that I could stand in the doorway and pick. Now there's light and sleep. I do my work between them. Some mornings I wake up with my hands open like I let go of something big while I was gone. I don't know what it was, and that is both mercy and ache. He topped off my washer fluid. Watch yourself, he said to the engine, and then to me. If the morning likes you, it curls around you quiet. You don't notice until you try to breathe without it. Back at the motel that afternoon, I set my recorder on the table and played back a conversation with Marlene about pie crust. In the fluorescent buzz, her voice felt farther than when she'd said the words. Underneath it, so faint I might have imagined it, I heard a brushy sound like paper on paper, like silk, like wheat on wheat. I turned the volume up. The sound didn't get louder, only clearer. She is, SS, she is, SS. I stopped the recording. The quiet felt heavier than noise. My phone vibrated. Lydia, my editor. You alive, she said, not wasting greetings. Barely, I joked. Lettuce, she said. I need a draft Monday. You vanish when you fall in love with trains and towns. I let you. Then my hair goes grey. I have something, I said. Just not lettuce. You sound weird. She sound weird, she said. Like you're inside a church. A pause. You okay, Miles? I'm fine. Promise me you're sleeping. I'm sleeping, I said. It wasn't a lie. I just left out the part about the light under the door. After we hung up, I checked my watch. 8:17 p.m. It had stopped. The second hand sat between numbers like a breath held. I tapped the face. Nothing. I spun the crown, reset it, set the time by the motel clock, went to brush my teeth. When I checked again, the watch had stopped at 8:17. I took it off. It felt like a joke told by someone who didn't know my sense of humor. At 9, I turned on every lamp in the room, propped the door open with my shoe, and sat with my back against it so the hallway's fluorescent light washed my face. Night pressed at the edges, not malicious, not kind, just present, like weather. Somewhere down the walkway, a TV laughed. A dog barked twice and gave up. The ice machine coughed. When I finally crawled into bed, I left the bathroom light on and the door cracked. The strip of brightness looked thin as a string, and I held it in my mind, the way you hold a thread while someone you trust ties a knot. The morning came like pouring milk. I drove to Gideon without thinking about the road. My hands knew the turn before my eyes did. Willa met me outside, leaning against a brick with a paper cup of coffee in both hands. Mama says I should stop talking to you so much, she said. She's probably right, I said. She usually is, Willa said, then smiled, quick and wry. But I'm stubborn. We sat on the curb. The concrete was still cool. A truck passed and gave us a new breeze. "When's your birthday?" I asked. 8 days, she said. "Mama will make a cake in the morning. People will stop by before work. I'll blow out candles with the sun in my face. I'll pretend I don't know what a night party is." "What would you do if you had one?" I asked. "String lights," she said, eyes unfocusing, seeing a place she'd never stood. "Real ones. The warm kind that make everybody pretty. I'd put on a dress that doesn't look like a uniform. I'd dance to music that sounds better after dark. I'd eat something that only tastes right at midnight. And then I'd sit on a porch step with someone and not say anything and call that conversation." "You've thought about it," I said. "Every day since I was 10, she said. "It's a hobby." We were quiet. A meadowlark sang. Far off, the water tower hummed like a throat clearing. "I meant what I wrote," she said finally. "I want to try." "It could hurt," I said. "It already hurts," she replied. "Just a different verb. What if we wait until, if not now," she said, and stopped. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a second napkin, smaller than the first. She unfolded it. 3 words in a tighter hand, as if she'd de-written them, pressed against the counter to keep them from shaking. "If not now." Marlene appeared in the doorway, drying a cup with a towel that was already dry. She looked at Willa. She looked at me. Something on her face moved. Grief, pride, both at once. "Sheriff will be on Main at sundown," she said. "That's not permission. That's a fact. He checks the doors. He sits with the car radios. He looks at men who think they can be clever and makes them feel embarrassed instead of brave. That's his skill." "I'm not asking you to bless it," Willa said softly. "I'm asking you not to stop me." Marlene held her gaze for a long, quiet beat. Then she nodded once. "Be home by morning," she said, and the words landed heavier than any curfew I'd ever heard. Sheriff Dayton crossed the street later with a cup of coffee that steamed like a signal in the cool. He stood with us by the Gideon sign. He read the napkin and folded it back over the words with the care you give a bandage. "You can't carry someone past a line they don't belong to," he said. "You can walk beside them until they learn that truth on their own feet." "We're going to try," Willa said. "I know," he said. "Careful is something you put on in the morning. Night puts you on. Remember that." He tapped my watch band with a fingertip. "What time's it when it stops?" he asked. 8:17, I said. He made a small noise. Not surprise, not satisfaction. "That's a common number," he said. "It means nothing. It means everything. It's like all the numbers." Marlene called from the doorway, "Pie's ready for the church," which is the kind of sentence that holds a town together. We stood under the sign a moment more. The back of it read, "Keep us in the light," dark letters beaded with dew. Willa reached out and laid her palm lightly against the wood, as if to feel a pulse. "Tonight," she said, "not as a dare, not as a wish, as a plan." I folded the napkin and slid it into my pocket, next to the first one, next to the prayer card, next to the press badge that had opened doors in crime scenes and city halls, but might not open this one. The pocket felt crowded with paper and decisions. "Tonight," I said. The wheat on the far side of the fence rubbed against itself. She is SS, like 2 pages of a book sliding together until the story found its seam. Confrontation with the night. The day slid by like honey, thick, golden, too slow to be natural. I wrote a few lines in my notebook about irrigation and rainfall, nothing worth sending to Lydia, then crossed them out. My watch lay on the nightstand, still fixed at 8:17, as if it were waiting for me to admit something. By late afternoon, I was back in Gideon. Willa met me by the sunup, with her backpack slung across one shoulder, braid tight, eyes bright and reckless. Marlene stood behind the counter with folded arms, jaw set. Sheriff Dayton sat in his cruiser across the street, window rolled down, looking like a man waiting for a storm to do what storms always do. We ate an early supper, though neither of us tasted it. Fried chicken, biscuits, gravy thick enough to hold a spoon. Willa pushed her plate away. "It's time," she said. We drove toward the edge of town, past the cottonwoods, toward the highway that had betrayed me before. The light thinned, then fractured, colors bleeding like watercolors spilled across gray paper. My chest tightened with each mile. Willa's hands clutched the straps of her backpack. "Keep driving," she whispered. The sign still stood, cheerful as morning. "Welcome to Gideon. See you in the morning." Beyond it, the road stretched open, leading into night. Then, without fanfare, Gideon vanished. The cottonwoods remained, black against a bruised sky. But Main Street was gone. The diner, the church, the tower gone. In their place, endless wheat, rolling in the rising wind. The air turned colder, carrying that dust smell, sharp and dry. "Don't stop," Willa said quickly. "If you stop, it notices." We pushed on. The headlights cut a narrow cone through the dark. My palms were slick on the wheel. The radio hissed static. No voices, just that brushy undertone like wheat rubbing wheat. 3 miles out, Willa touched my arm. "Pull over." I slowed onto the shoulder. The world beyond the beams was ink. "I want to try," she said, opening the door before I could protest. "Willa." She stepped out, sneakers crunching gravel. The dome light spilled pale yellow on her face, softening nothing. She lifted her chin. "If I can stand here with you, maybe I can stand anywhere." I joined her. The night pressed in immediately heavy cold, not like ordinary darkness. It felt sentient, deliberate. The wheat hissed around us. Willa took one step forward, off the shoulder. Her knee buckled. She gasped, collapsing, hand flying to her throat. I lunged, catching her under the arms. Her skin was clammy, her lips already bluing, her eyes wide, unblinking. Back, I dragged her to the white line, shoes scraping. As soon as her heels crossed it, her body shuddered, sucking in air. Color bled back into her face. She clutched my shirt, sobbing soundlessly. The wheat swayed, though the wind had died. Behind us, tires crackled on gravel. Sheriff Dayton's cruiser rolled up, headlights off. He climbed out, hat brim shadowing his eyes. "I told you," he said evenly. "Careful is for the morning. Night knows every trick." "She almost died." I snapped. "She didn't," he said. "That's the trick too. Night lets you think it can be bargained with. It can't." Willa wiped her mouth with her sleeve, trembling. "I just wanted to see the stars," she whispered. "You see stars on postcards," Marlene's voice called. She stood in the glow of the diner's vanished edge, as if the town half existed, watching us from the border. Her face was pale in the dark. "That's all you get." Willa sobbed once, deep and raw. I held her, feeling my own heartbeat hammer too fast. Sheriff Dayton touched my shoulder. His hand was warm, solid, grounding. "Do you feel it yet?" he asked softly. "Feel what?" I rasped. "The day curling around your bones," he said. "The way night tastes wrong now. That's how it starts." I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words stuck, because I had felt it. In the motel, pressing my face to the crack of light under the door. In the way my chest had tightened as dusk fell. In the watch frozen at 8:17, as if mocking my denial. The sheriff nodded at Willa, who clung to me like a drowning girl. "You see why she can't go, and why you might not leave." The wheat whispered again, louder, urgent. I thought I could almost make out words in it, syllables rasped by stalk, on stalk. My skin prickled. "Get her home," Dayton said. "Tomorrow you'll both be fine. But tonight you don't belong." Back at the motel, the air was too still. The neon vacancy sign flickered, buzzing like a hornet. I turned on every lamp, the TV, even the bathroom light. Still the dark pressed in from the corners, thick as syrup. I lay on the carpet with my face against the gap under the door, breathing the fluorescent wash from the hallway like oxygen. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw Wheat bending toward me, whispering. At some point, exhaustion dragged me under. I dreamed of Gideon erased on a black map, its place marked only by a smear of wheat dust. And when I awoke, dust lay across the motel sill in a neat line, thin as a thread. I rubbed it between my fingers. It tingled. The next morning, I played back the tape recorder again. Marlene's voice from yesterday, telling me about her mother's pie crust. But under it, clearer now, a second track, Wheat, whispering. Not a sound of nature caught by accident, a rhythm, a cadence, like words too old to translate. She SSS. I switched the recorder off. My hands shook. My reflection in the black plastic looked thinner, almost translucent. The day was already holding me, and I wasn't sure I wanted to let go. The day keeps him. The next morning dawned too bright, as if the sun had been waiting for me alone. I staggered into the diner, feeling like my body had been wrung out. Marlene slid a mug of coffee across the counter without comment. Her eyes flicked to mine, lingered, then moved away as if she saw more than I wanted to admit. "Eat," she said simply. The pancakes steamed. I cut into them with a fork and knife that trembled slightly in my grip. The butter soaked the surface, sweet and heavy. It tasted like comfort, but it sat on my tongue like surrender. Willa appeared from the kitchen, pale but alive. Her eyes found mine, and in them was something new. Grief, yes, but also apology. "I can't try again," she whispered, sliding napkins into their holder. "I thought I could. I thought maybe you'd help me, but it doesn't let go. Miles, it never lets go." Her braid swung forward, a loose strand clinging to her cheek. She didn't move to brush it away. "Last night," I said slowly, "I thought the dark was going to kill me. I pressed my face against the light under the door like a man gasping for air. And when dawn came, I didn't want to leave it." Her hands stilled. "You're changing," she said. I wanted to deny it, but even the words felt heavy in my throat, as if wrapped in syrup. My watch sat on the counter. The second hand twitched, then stopped again at 8:17. No matter how I set it. Sheriff Dayton entered with his slow, deliberate step. He took a stool beside me, removed his hat, and placed it on the counter. He nodded once at Marlene, then looked straight at me. "You feel it," he said. "I don't know what I feel." "You do," he said gently. "The morning's got its hand on your shoulder. Won't let go." He slid something across the counter, a worn index card, edges curled. My name was written there, neat in black ink, and beneath it, a single word in smaller hand. "Stay." My stomach dropped. "You wrote this?" He shook his head. "It was waiting. All names wait. Some fade, some stay." I stared at it, the letters stark against the paper. I could feel it, like a weight pressing against my chest. "I can still leave," I whispered. "No," Dayton said quietly. "You can try, but the day already knows your name." The hours blurred. The diner, the church, the water tower, they all felt sharper, brighter, as if they'd been etched into me. Each sound carried deeper, forks on plates, the squeak of shoes on tile, the low hum of the tower like a heartbeat behind the town. Even the wheat beyond the fence leaned closer, whispering louder, not threatening, inviting. That night in the motel, I didn't even bother turning on the lights. Darkness no longer terrified MIT simply didn't hold me. I lay awake, feeling empty, waiting for dawn. When the first crack of light broke, relief washed over me so strong I nearly cried. By the end of the week, I no longer set my alarm. My body rose with the first pale glow. I drove to Gideon as if on instinct. The sign, the diner, the bell, they were no longer strange. They were inevitable. Marlene greeted me with pancakes. Willa smiled a sad, resigned smile, as if she'd known this ending from the moment I walked in that first day. Sheriff Dayton clapped my shoulder with the solemnity of a minister welcoming a convert. And then, one morning, Marlene handed me a plate and said, "Take this to booth 5, new guest." I obeyed without hesitation. My feet carried me, sure as if I'd walked this path for years. The man at booth 5 was middle-aged, hair thinning, face pale from too much office light. His hands shook as he stirred his coffee. His eyes darted like a man who had just discovered something he couldn't understand. "Morning," I said softly, setting down his plate. He glanced up at me. "Is this place?" He stopped, searching. "I came here last night. It wasn't here. But today," I smiled, the same patient smile I'd seen on Marlene, on Dayton, on every resident whose name had once been inked in that book. "Night plays tricks," I told him. "It always has." Later, I stood at the edge of town, looking out at the wheat. The wind hissed through it, steady and endless. She-s-s-s-s, she-s-s-s. I understood it now. Not words, not a warning, a lullaby, a promise. I pressed my palm to the back of the welcome sign, to the carved words darkened by age and weather. "Keep us in the light." The grooves fit my hand like they had been waiting for me. And in that moment, I knew I was theirs. The night had no claim on me anymore. I was a resident of the morning forever.